World War II was a global conflict that brought unimaginable destruction and loss of life. The scale of the conflict was unprecedented.
On the 25th of September, Hitler orders the bombing of
World War II was a global conflict that brought unimaginable destruction and loss of life. The scale of the conflict was unprecedented, involving nations from every corner of the globe and resulting in a profound transformation of the world order. It is crucial to understand why Nazi Germany, despite its initial victories, ultimately suffered defeat. The early successes of the German military, driven by their blitzkrieg tactics, created an illusion of invincibility. However, this facade began to crumble as the war progressed. By examining the key factors that led to their downfall, we can gain valuable insights into the complexities of warfare, the dangers of totalitarian regimes, and the importance of international cooperation. The alliances formed during the war, both among the Axis and the Allies, played a critical role in shaping the conflict's outcome. This video will explore the strategic miscalculations, economic overreach, failure of alliances, intelligence failures, and the human... This video will explore the strategic miscalculations, economic overreach, failure of alliances, intelligence failures, and the human factor that contributed to Germany's defeat. The overextension of German supply lines, the inability to maintain cohesive alliances, and the underestimation of the Allied response were pivotal in their downfall. Understanding the reasons behind Germany's defeat is not merely an academic exercise. It is a vital lesson in the importance of strategic planning, the limits of military power, and the consequences of hubris. Historians and students alike delve into these aspects to draw parallels with contemporary geopolitical scenarios. It serves as a reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of vigilance against ideologies of hatred and intolerance. The liberation of concentration camps and the subsequent international peace conferences highlighted the need for a collective commitment to human rights and justice. By learning from the mistakes of the past, we can strive to prevent such tragedies from happening again. Educational workshops and peace demonstrations continue to emphasize the importance of remembering history to build a better future. The lessons of World War II remain relevant today, reminding us of the need for diplomacy, cooperation, and a commitment to upholding human rights and freedoms. The formation of the United Nations and the signing of modern peace treaties are direct outcomes of the war's lessons. The world held its breath as the Nazi war machine marched across Europe, seemingly unstoppable in its early conquests. The rapid advances into Poland and France showcased the might of the German military, but also set the stage for their eventual overreach. Yet the seeds of defeat were sown even in the hour of apparent triumph. The relentless push for expansion without adequate logistical support and the harsh winters of the Eastern Front began to take their toll on the German forces. Examining these seeds, the strategic blunders, the economic strain, the crumbling alliances, and the human cost, is essential to understanding the true nature of the conflict and its eventual outcome. The economic strain of sustaining a prolonged war effort and the eventual collapse of alliances were critical factors in Germany's defeat. The narrative of World War II is not just a tale of armies and battles, but also a story of choices, consequences, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of tyranny. Civilian resistance movements and the post-war rebuilding efforts exemplify the enduring human spirit and the desire for peace and stability. By delving into the reasons behind Germany's defeat, we gain a deeper understanding of this pivotal chapter in human history and its enduring legacy. The stories of veterans, the meticulous work of historians, and the preservation of history through exhibits ensure that the lessons of World War II continue to resonate with future generations. One of Hitler's most significant strategic blunders was his decision to open a second front in the east by invading the Soviet Union in 1941. This decision would have far-reaching consequences that he and his military advisors failed to fully anticipate. This operation, codenamed Barbarossa, was a catastrophic miscalculation that would ultimately prove fatal for the Nazi regime. The plan was ambitious, aiming to quickly defeat the Soviet forces and secure vast territories. Hitler believed that the Soviet Union was a weak and disorganized state that could be easily conquered. He was confident that a swift and decisive victory was within reach. However, he grossly underestimated the Red Army's resolve and the vastness of the Russian territory. The Soviet Union, with its immense size and harsh climate, posed challenges that the German military was not prepared for. The German army, initially successful, soon found itself bogged down in a brutal war of attrition. Early victories gave way to prolonged and grueling battles. The vast distances, harsh weather conditions, and fierce resistance of the Soviet people took a heavy toll on German manpower and resources. The German soldiers were not equipped for the severe winters and the relentless Soviet counterattacks. The Eastern Front became a meat grinder, consuming German troops and equipment at an alarming rate. The scale of the conflict was unprecedented, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The decision to invade the Soviet Union stretched the German army far beyond its limits. The vast distances and logistical challenges made it difficult to maintain supply lines and support the front-line troops. Supply lines became overextended, making it difficult to provide troops with essential supplies and reinforcements. The lack of adequate supplies, including food, ammunition, and winter clothing, severely impacted the German soldiers' ability to fight effectively. The harsh Russian winters also took a heavy toll on German soldiers who were ill-prepared for the extreme cold. Many soldiers suffered from frostbite and other cold-related injuries, further weakening the German forces. The Eastern Front became a quagmire for the German army, draining its strength and ultimately contributing significantly to its defeat. The prolonged battles and the relentless Soviet offensives wore down the German forces. The vastness of the Soviet Union, the resilience of the Red Army, and the harsh environmental conditions all conspired to defeat Hitler's ambitions in the East. The combination of these factors created insurmountable obstacles that the German military could not overcome, leading to their eventual retreat and defeat. Hitler's belief in the inferiority of the Slavic people and his underestimation of Soviet military capabilities fueled his confidence in a swift victory. He was convinced that the Soviet Union, with its diverse ethnic groups and perceived internal weaknesses, would crumble under the might of the German Wehrmacht. He envisioned a blitzkrieg, a lightning war that would crush the Red Army before it could mount a serious defense. The initial stages of Operation Barbarossa seemed to confirm his expectations as German forces made rapid advances into Soviet territory. However, this assessment proved to be disastrously flawed. The German advance soon began to slow as they encountered fierce resistance from Soviet forces. The Red Army, though initially caught off guard, was far from being the pushover Hitler had imagined. Soviet soldiers quickly regrouped and began to mount a formidable defense. Soviet soldiers, fueled by patriotism and a fierce determination to defend their homeland, fought with incredible tenacity. Their resolve was bolstered by the knowledge that they were fighting for their very survival against an enemy that sought to annihilate them. Furthermore, the Soviet Union's industrial capacity, while initially underestimated by the Germans, allowed them to replace their losses and continue fighting. Factories were relocated east of the Ural Mountains, out of reach of German bombers, and production continued unabated. The vast distances of the Soviet Union also played a crucial role in thwarting the German advance. The sheer size of the territory made it difficult for the Germans to maintain supply lines and effectively control the areas they had captured. The seemingly endless steppes swallowed up entire armies, while the harsh weather conditions, scorching summers and bitterly cold winters, sapped the strength of the invading forces. The Germans were ill-prepared for the extreme climate, and their equipment often failed in the severe conditions. Operation Barbarossa, initially conceived as a swift and decisive blow, became a protracted and bloody struggle. The Germans found themselves bogged down in a war of attrition, fighting for every inch of ground. The German army, unprepared for a war of this scale and ferocity, found itself drawn into a conflict that would ultimately break its back. The prolonged fighting drained their resources and morale, leading to significant losses. The vastness of the Soviet Union, the resilience of its people, and the miscalculations of the German leadership all contributed to the operation's failure. The Soviet Union's ability to mobilize its population and resources for the war effort proved to be a decisive factor in turning the tide against the German invaders. Section 4. Stalingrad, the tide turns. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought between August 1942 and February 1943, marked a turning point in World War II. This brutal and costly battle, fought street by street in the ruins of the city, resulted in a decisive Soviet victory and shattered the myth of German invincibility. For Hitler, Stalingrad held symbolic importance, bearing the name of his nemesis, Joseph Stalin. He was determined to capture the city, pouring in more and more troops even as the situation became increasingly desperate. The German Sixth Army, trapped and surrounded by the Red Army, fought with fanaticism but was eventually forced to surrender. The defeat at Stalingrad was a severe blow to German morale, both on the battlefield and on the home front. It exposed the limitations of German military might and signaled the beginning of the end for Hitler's ambitions in the East. The Battle of Stalingrad marked a turning point in the war, demonstrating the ability of the Allied forces to defeat the German army in a major engagement. It also highlighted the strategic importance of the Eastern Front, which had become a graveyard for German ambitions. Section 5. Economic strain, the limits of power. While Germany possessed a formidable military machine, its economy was not equipped for a prolonged war against multiple major powers. The Nazi war effort relied heavily on plundered resources and forced labor, but this system proved unsustainable in the long run. The Allied powers, particularly the United States with its vast industrial capacity, were able to outproduce Germany in terms of war materials. The constant bombing of German factories and infrastructure by Allied air forces further crippled the German war effort. The Nazi regime's reliance on forced labor, while providing a temporary boost to production, also created inefficiencies and resentment. The brutal treatment of laborers, many of whom were prisoners of war or civilians from occupied territories, led to sabotage and resistance. The German war economy, despite its initial successes, was fundamentally flawed. Its reliance on plunder, forced labor, and unsustainable practices ultimately contributed to its downfall. The Allied powers, with their superior industrial capacity and resources, were able to outproduce and outmaneuver Germany in the economic sphere.